What if I told you that a woman spent 38 years, every single day, every single night, building a house? Not because she wanted a mansion, not because she loved architecture, but because she believed, with every fiber of her being, that the moment she stopped building, she would die. This house still stands today in San Jose, California, with 160 rooms, 2,000 doors, and staircases that lead directly into the ceiling. This is the true story of the Winchester Mystery House and the woman who built it to escape the dead. Sarah Lockwood Pardee was born in 1839 in New Haven, Connecticut. She was intelligent, talented, and highly educated. She spoke 5 languages, played piano beautifully, and became one of the most respected women in New Haven society. In 1862, she married William Wirt Winchester, heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. The Winchester rifle had already become one of the most famous weapons in America. Sarah was wealthy. She was happy, and in 1866, she gave birth to a daughter named Annie Pardee Winchester. For a brief moment, Sarah Winchester had everything. But that happiness did not last. Annie died at only 40 days old from a severe disease called marasmus. Sarah never recovered from the grief. Then, years later, her husband William became sick with tuberculosis. On March 7, 1881, he died. Sarah was left completely alone. She inherited millions of dollars and a massive fortune from the Winchester Company. But money could not save her from grief. In her desperation, Sarah visited a spiritual medium, someone who claimed to speak with the dead. The medium delivered a terrifying message. He claimed the spirits of everyone killed by Winchester rifles were now hunting Sarah. And according to him, they would never stop. Then came the warning. You must leave your home and go west. Build a house for yourself and for the spirits. Never stop building, because the day construction stops is the day you die. Sarah believed him. In 1884, she traveled to San Jose, California, bought a small unfinished farmhouse, hired workers and gave them one order: never stop building. And for the next 38 years, construction never stopped. Workers built day and night, 3 shifts every single day. The sound of hammers echoed constantly through the property. When Sarah died in 1922, the house had become something impossible. 160 rooms, 8,000 doors, 10,000 windows, 40 staircases, 13 bathrooms, 47 fireplaces. At one point, the mansion stood 7 stories tall. But the most disturbing part was not its size. It was the design. There were staircases that led directly into ceilings, doors that opened into empty air, hallways that twisted into confusing loops, windows built into floors, hidden passages everywhere. Many believed Sarah designed the house this way to confuse the spirits haunting her. She believed ghosts could not travel through complicated paths, so she turned her entire home into a maze. Sarah also became obsessed with the number 13. Many rooms had 13 windows. Staircases had 13 steps. One chandelier held exactly 13 candles. Even her will was divided into 13 sections and signed 13 times. To Sarah, this was protection, a ritual against the dead. Deep inside the mansion was a room called the Blue Room, her personal séance chamber. Every night, Sarah would walk through the dark hallways alone, carrying a candle. She would lock herself inside the room for hours. And every morning, she emerged with new construction instructions. New doors, new rooms, new staircases. The workers believed she was receiving directions from spirits. Then came April 18, 1906. A massive earthquake struck California. The Winchester house was badly damaged. Several upper floors collapsed completely. Sarah was trapped inside her bedroom during the earthquake. Servants had to force the door open to rescue her. Afterward, Sarah became convinced the spirits were angry with her. She permanently sealed off entire sections of the mansion and intensified construction even further. For years, the building continued to grow. Room after room, hallway after hallway, an endless maze built from fear, guilt, and obsession. Then finally, on September 4, 1922, Sarah Winchester died in her sleep at the age of 83. The moment news of her death spread through the mansion, the construction stopped forever. Workers reportedly left tools exactly where they were. Nails remained half-hammered into wood. Unfinished rooms stayed unfinished forever. Today, the Winchester Mystery House still stands in San Jose, California. Thousands of people visit it every year, and many claim strange things still happen inside. Visitors report hearing footsteps in empty hallways, doors opening by themselves, cold spots appearing suddenly, whispers in dark rooms. Some even claim to have seen the spirit of Sarah Winchester, herself wandering through the mansion late at night. But perhaps the most terrifying part of this story is not the ghost, it is the grief. A brilliant woman spent nearly 4 decades building a prison for herself because she believed the dead were coming for her. And even after all those rooms, all those staircases, all those years, she still could not escape her fear. The Winchester Mystery House remains standing to this day, a monument to guilt, to obsession, and perhaps to something far darker. On Christmas Eve, 1945, a house caught fire in Fayetteville, West Virginia. By morning, it had burned to the ground. The father escaped. The mother escaped. 4 of the children escaped. But 5 children, ranging in age from 5 to 14, were never found. No bodies, no bones, no ash, no remains of any kind. The official ruling was simple. The children died in the fire. Case closed. But their parents refused to believe that. For the next 30 years, they kept a billboard outside their home with photos of their missing children, asking the world if anyone had seen them. Because the more you look at this fire, the more impossible it becomes. This is the true story of the Sodder children, one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries. George Sodder was an immigrant from Italy. He came to America young, settled in Fayetteville, West Virginia, and built a successful trucking and coal business. He married a woman named Jenny, and together they had 10 children. Their home sat on a quiet rural property outside town. On Christmas Eve of 1945, all 10 children were home. The whole family was together. George and Jenny went to bed around midnight. Some of the older children stayed awake, excited for Christmas morning. At 1 in the morning, Jenny woke to the smell of smoke. The house was already burning. The upper floor was engulfed in flames. Smoke poured through the hallways. George and Jenny rushed outside screaming for their children. 4 escaped safely. But 5 children, Maurice, Martha, Louie, Jenny, and Betty, were still inside. George tried to run back into the house. The fire was too intense. Then he remembered his coal trucks parked beside the home. He planned to drive one against the wall, climb onto the roof, and reach the upper windows. He turned the key. Neither truck started. Both had worked perfectly the day before. George was a mechanic. He maintained them himself. He ran to a neighbor's house to call the fire department. The phone line was dead. He tried another neighbor. Dead again. By the time firefighters arrived, after 8 in the morning, the house was nothing but ash. The fire chief later claimed the department had been delayed because they were attending a Christmas party. George Sodder stood in the freezing night and watched his house burn for 7 hours while 5 of his children remained trapped inside. Then came the strangest part. When investigators searched the ruins, they found no human remains, no bones, no skull fragments, nothing. Officials claimed the fire had burned so hot that the children's bodies were completely destroyed. But that explanation made no sense. Even crematoriums, built specifically to burn human remains, still leave bones behind. And in the rubble, investigators found partially melted objects, furniture fragments, and even what was described as a human liver still intact. A liver survived, furniture survived, but 5 children supposedly vanished without leaving a trace. The coroner officially declared the children dead anyway, and the fire chief ordered the site bulldozed only 1 day later, before the family could search properly, before any serious investigation began. Then the Sodder family discovered even more disturbing details. George kept a long ladder beside the house for emergencies. On the night of the fire, it was missing. Days later, it was found thrown into weeds 40 feet away. The fire was blamed on faulty wiring, but the family electrician had inspected the home weeks earlier and said the wiring was perfectly safe. Even stranger, while the fire burned, the lights inside the house still worked. Normally, faulty wiring severe enough to start a fire would trip the fuse box first. The phone line was later discovered to have been cut from outside the house, not burned, cut deliberately. And George's trucks, investigators later found signs that their ignition systems had been tampered with. The ladder removed, the phone line cut, the trucks disabled, 5 children missing. This did not feel like an accident. It felt planned, but who would target the Sodder family? George Sodder was outspoken about politics. He publicly criticized Benito Mussolini, the fascist dictator of Italy, during a time when opinions inside Italian-American communities were deeply divided. Before the fire, an insurance salesman visited George. George refused his offer. As the man left, he turned back and said, Your house is going to go up in flames, and your children are going to be destroyed. George reported the threat. Nothing happened. 2 months later, the house burned down. Then came reports that the children were still alive. A motel owner claimed she saw children matching their descriptions, traveling with 2 unknown adults. The children appeared frightened. Whenever she tried to speak to them, the adults quickly pulled them away. A bus driver later said he saw several children matching the same descriptions. A woman traveling with them warned him not to speak to the children. Another witness reported seeing children at a roadside diner before they were hurried into a car. Every report was dismissed. Every lead disappeared. The Sodder family hired private investigators. Some believed the children had been taken to Florida. Others traced possible connections to Italian-American communities in the South. But every trail eventually went cold. George and Jenny never accepted that their children were dead. In 1952, they built a massive billboard facing the road outside their home. On it were photographs of the 5 missing children. Beneath them, "What happened to our 5 missing children?" The billboard stayed there for over 20 years. Every morning, every night, every Christmas, the family lived beneath those faces, waiting for answers. Then, in 1967, 22 years after the fire, Jenny received a strange letter. Inside was a photograph of a young man. On the back were handwritten words, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie." Hey little boys. Louis had been only 4 years old when he disappeared. Jenny believed the young man in the photo looked exactly like what Louis would have looked like as an adult. Investigators traced the letter to Central City, Kentucky. The family traveled there. They searched, asked questions, showed people the photo. Nothing. The trail ended in silence. Over the years, several theories emerged. Some believed the fire was connected to organized crime and retaliation against George for his political opinions. Others believed the children had been kidnapped and raised under different identities. Some suspected officials helped cover up what really happened. But no theory was ever proven, and none were ever disproven. George Sodder died in 1969. He never learned what happened to his children. Jenny died in 1989. She never learned either. Their daughter Sylvia spent decades continuing the search. Officially, the case remains closed. The children are still listed as victims of a house fire, but no remains were ever found. No suspect was charged. No real explanation was ever given. Maybe the children died in the fire. Maybe they were taken and raised somewhere else under new names. But some details refuse to disappear. Phone lines do not cut themselves. Ladders do not move themselves. Trucks do not disable themselves. Accidents do not prepare for themselves. Every Christmas feels safe. Warm lights, family together under one roof. That is exactly how Christmas Eve felt for the Sodder family in 1945. And before sunrise, 5 children were gone. No bodies, no answers, no justice. Only a billboard beside a lonely road, asking a question for decades that nobody could answer. And somewhere in the darkness of that Christmas night, the truth disappeared with them. On the morning of June 10, 1912, a neighbor knocked on the door of a quiet farmhouse in Villisca, Iowa. No one answered. She tried the door. It was locked. The curtains were drawn. The animals outside were restless. The whole house felt wrong. She called the town marshal. He forced the door open and walked inside. What he found would become one of the most horrifying, unsolved murder cases in American history. This is the true story of the Villisca axe murders. Josiah Moore was a respected businessman in Villisca, Iowa, a small farming town of about 2,500 people. He ran a successful farm equipment business. He was active in church. He coached youth baseball. People trusted him. He and his wife Sarah had 4 children. Herman, 11, Catherine, 9, Boyd, 7, and Paul, 5. On the evening of June 9, 1912, the Moore family attended a Children's Day program at the local Presbyterian church. 2 young sisters, Lena and Ina Stillinger, joined them and planned to sleep over that night. Late that evening, the group walked home together. 8 people entered the house. The door closed behind them. None of them would ever leave alive. The next morning, the town marshal entered through the back door. He searched the downstairs rooms first. Inside a downstairs bedroom, he found the Stillinger girls. Both had been killed in their sleep. The wounds showed they had been struck with something heavy and sharp. He moved upstairs. In the master bedroom, he found Josiah and Sarah Moore, dead. In the children's rooms, all 4 more children, dead in their beds. 8 victims. One house, one night. The murder weapon was discovered inside the home. A large axe belonging to Josiah Moore himself, taken from the family barn, used to kill everyone in the house, then carefully cleaned and left against the wall. But the most disturbing details were still waiting inside the house. Every mirror had been covered, with sheets, with clothing, with fabric, every single mirror. The curtains had been pulled shut. Some were even nailed closed. The entire house had been sealed from the inside. In the kitchen, investigators found raw bacon sitting on the counter beside a plate and frying pan, as if someone had started preparing food and suddenly stopped. In the Stillinger girls' room, the oil lamp had burned completely dry, meaning the killer likely stayed in or near that room long after the murders. Nothing had been stolen. Money remained untouched. There was no sign of robbery, no sign of sexual assault, no evidence of a struggle. The killer had moved silently through the house in the middle of the night. One room after another, one victim after another, and then disappeared before sunrise. News of the murders spread through Villisca within hours. Crowds gathered outside the house. People pushed through rooms before investigators could secure the scene. Evidence was touched, moved, contaminated. By nightfall, the entire town was terrified. Families locked their doors. Men stayed awake holding firearms. Children refused to sleep alone. No one knew who committed the murders, and no one knew if the killer was still nearby. The governor of Iowa offered a reward. Private detectives were hired. Newspapers across the country flooded into Villisca, but almost immediately, the investigation began falling apart. Over the years, several major suspects emerged. The first was Reverend George Kelly, a traveling minister who attended the same church event as the Moore family on the night of the murders. He left town by train before the bodies were discovered. Later, he made disturbing statements and appeared to partially confess. He was arrested, tried twice, and acquitted both times. The second suspect was Henry Moore, no relation to the family, a drifter linked to several similar axe murders in other states. But investigators could never place him inside the Villisca house. The third suspect was William Mansfield, a suspected hired killer. Some believe Josiah Moore had made enemies in business, and Mansfield may have been hired to murder him, but no suspect was ever convicted. Then investigators noticed something even stranger. Between 1911 and 1912, multiple unsolved axe murders occurred across the Midwest. Entire families killed in rural homes, victims murdered in their beds, mirrors covered, axes left behind, oil lamps burned dry. The similarities were impossible to ignore. Some investigators believed a serial killer was traveling town to town using railroad lines, entering homes at night, killing entire families, and disappearing before morning. The theory was never officially proven, but it was never disproven either. Of all the details inside the Villisca house, the covered mirrors disturbed investigators the most. In many traditions, mirrors are covered after a death as part of mourning rituals. But inside this house, the mirrors were covered before anyone even discovered the bodies, which means the killer covered them. Why? Some believe it prevented the killer from seeing his own reflection. Others think it was ritualistic, a psychological compulsion, or perhaps whoever committed the murders simply did not want the house looking back at them. The mirrors covered, the curtains nailed shut, the axe cleaned, the bacon left on the counter. This was not chaos. This was calm, careful, methodical. The house at 508 East 2nd Street still stands today in Villisca, Iowa. It has been preserved almost exactly as it appeared in 1912. Today, people visit the house as a museum. Some even stay overnight. Paranormal investigators claim to hear children's voices, footsteps in empty rooms, cold hands touching sleeping guests, a heavy feeling in the upstairs bedrooms. Whether those stories are real or not, something about that house still feels wrong. 8 people entered that home on a warm summer night in 1912, and by morning, all of them were dead. The Villisca axe murders remain unsolved. No one was ever convicted. No one was ever truly cleared. The Moore children, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, went to sleep safely in their own home. They never woke up. The axe was wiped clean. The mirrors were covered. The curtains were nailed shut. And whoever walked out of that house before sunrise took the truth with them forever. The case file still exists. The house still stands. And somewhere, the real answer still waits in the dark.